Well, it is our pleasure to chat to one of St Kilda's favourite sons. There have been a few Maxes in the news with the Saints of late. Obviously, Max King, unfortunately, with his injury troubles. Max Hall's made a really good impression early days. If you go back to the start of the 80s, you had Max Crowe, who was a very important player. But I think the most distinguished and probably the most popular Max over the journey has been Maxie Hudghton, 200-game player, grand final in his first season. St Kilda actually made a grand final in his last as well in 2009. But Max Hudghton, thanks very much for jumping on.
No worries, guys. Pleasure to join in finally.
Now, you were recruited from Queensland, but you were a Victorian from the Collingwood stronghold, I guess, of the Diamond Creek and the northern
Yep.
suburbs. Can you sort of take us through the move to Queensland and then how
Yep.
you ended up getting scouted back to the Saints?
Yeah, it's funny. Most people think I'm actually from Queensland, but I grew up in Kinglake initially. Played for Research Football Club. I don't know, whenever you start sevens, eights, nines, tens, through to under 12s. My dad was a builder, old mud brick builder, so we lived out that way. And then went to St Helena Secondary College in Eltham, and then moved over to Diamond Creek Footy Club and played there till I was in under 17s, first year of under 17. So, you did 2 years of 15s, 2 years of 17s. And then my parents divorced when I was a lot younger. My dad's new wife, she'd been around for, they've been married for 15 years prior, but she was from Queensland. So we moved to Queensland. Dad was really struggling with the recession. So moved up there when I was 16, turning 17, September. Was at the Northern Knights at the time. Worst time of my life, to be honest with you. Can you imagine being 16, 17, all your mates, your footy, and then just be yanked out of an environment straight away and moved to the outskirts of Brisbane. And so it was a massive culture shift for me. Sort of lost my way for a year or so. Didn't really, footy wasn't really much of a thing up there. And then basically hooked up with West Brisbane, and Michael Werner was my coach there, and Ray Shaw, who was Tony Shaw's brother, and played, I think, 18 months up there. And Danny Craven took over from Michael Werner first year after Danny got delisted from the Lions. And yeah, basically that whole year played centre half back, centre half forward on basically all the Brisbane Lion players all year. So obviously stood out a little bit based on those guys. We won the premiership. We were sort of a bit of a fairy tale team. We were a battling club, never really done any good. And we just had a core group of players that had been there for years, didn't really get many recruits, and won the flag. So I don't know, just then journey back down to obviously my home state, which I love, Victoria, and I couldn't have been happier, to be honest with you. So my parents had divorced, and my mum had married into the Hunter family, and the Hunter family were a big sponsor for St Kilda. So there's actually an interesting story which you guys may or may not know. A few people know. It's actually in Kevin Sheedy's book. But Essendon were really keen on me, and Ken Fletcher was coming up all the time, watching me play, etc. And before the draft camp, before the draft, Essendon nominated me for the draft camp, so I went and did the compound camp. And then just before the draft, a week before the draft, they flew me down privately, and I had a meeting with Sheedy and James Hurd and Danny Corcoran and Noel Junkins, and went through everything. Essendon had pick 2 and pick 5 and pick maybe 18 that year. And Sheedy and all them were talking to me anyway. Noel, and Danny, who were the two guys making decisions from what I knew, go, "Oh, we're going to take you pick 5. 100%, we're taking you pick 5." And I'm like, okay. I barracked for Essendon when I was young, so mate, this was a dream come true as a young fella. So come draft day, it wasn't a big national event, TV or anything like that. So my grandma had the the phone next to the radio. It was played over the radio, and because I was in Brisbane, I might have been on the TV, and she was playing the TV, and pick 5 come up, and they read out Daniel McAllister. I'm like, what the hell has just happened here? And then I didn't know where I was going. And the funny thing is, I told my parents I was going to meet with Essendon, and then they had been the Hunter affiliation with St Kilda, had told John Beveridge at Essendon were really interested, and John already knew everything about me, so he never interviewed me. He never spoke to me ever once before the draft. Didn't speak. I spoke to every other club, bar St Kilda. And anyway, so Beveridge got all the inside goss, so it was quite amazing. But the funny story about the draft is that years later, I caught up with Danny Corcoran and Noel Junga. I said, "What the hell happened, boys? I thought I was coming to St Kilda," and they go, Kevin Sheedy went to the toilet and spoke to Andrew Ireland, I think his name was, who was at Brisbane Lions at the time. And he goes, Sheedy said to Ireland, why aren't you taking Max? And they go, oh, we don't rate him as a first round pick. Sheedy went back to the table and said, I'm taking my wild card boy, McAllister from New Zealand, who can jump over tall buildings. And that was the end of the story. So they had a massive Barney about it, and Junkins and Danny Corcoran. It's actually in Kevin Sheedy's book. No, or Noel Junkins or Kevin Sheedy's book, one of the two. I can't remember. So, interesting story. Most people don't know that. Yeah.
So, you obviously ended up getting drafted at 20 years old, though. You were a little bit older at that stage. You ended up playing 17 games in the first season. Do you reckon being drafted just that little bit older ended up having you more prepared, having played that extra, I guess, senior footy up in Queensland and that, and you were able to just sort of more step straight in rather than what it would have been when you're 18?
Oh, I reckon, because if I was drafted at 18, I probably would have played a year. I was pretty green. I was pretty thin. I wasn't very, I was gangly. And so, yeah, playing that one, basically, I played a year of AFL reserves, because I played on the Lions players every week, so who dropped back into the quaffle. So, every week I was playing on Lepich or Bartlett or Daniel Bradshaw or all these type of guys. So, yeah, definitely prepared me. So when I came, I was already match hardened, ready for physical footy with big men. You know what I mean? So, and the quaffle back then, mate, she was pretty tough. Don't worry, there was haymakers flying everywhere and plenty of dirty stuff going on. So I was well and truly prepared.
You came in 97.
Yep.
And the beginning of the season's a bit rough. And then you end up making a grand final.
Yep.
You lose a game, which, in fairness, probably the week leading up to the grand final, the weeks leading up to the grand final, things that could go wrong did go wrong. Vidovic goes out, Everett goes out. We're left with Brett Cook in the ruck. Obviously, Winmar's dad passes away. Issues with other players and their families in the lead up.
Yep.
But you go in at halftime with a lead.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much every game that you'd gone in with a lead in 97, you came out even stronger in the second half. That was, I think, my recollection of 97 was that was the hallmark of your season.
Yep.
The last quarter, when Darren Jarman goes berserk on Jamie Shanahan, at what stage do you go, mate, Jamie, give me a go?
Look, I have actually had that question asked many, many times. I think you brought up some good points. If you want to talk about the lead up, the loss of Joel Smith was pretty big as well.
Yeah.
With his knee. But I think the biggest point with the grand final was Adelaide's ability to really nullify our forward line that second half, particularly with Wren and Pittman and what was his name? The other backman back there, Caven. I think it was Caven.
Yeah.
Their ability to just drop the ruckman Wren back in the hole and just nullify Stewie was 2-on-1. And I mean, the effect of losing Spider was unbelievable. I mean, we all know, you're all St Kilda fans, he is a superstar. I mean, he just tear a game apart in no time. So we're not making excuses. Who would have known what would have happened? But certainly would have helped to have our full cavalry out there on the field, that's for sure. But in regards to Jarman versus Shanahan, look, only Stan will know the answer to that one. Why there wasn't a move, who knows? But in fairness, I mean, Jarman, I played on Jarman one time at the Adelaide Oval. No, where is it? Football Park, sorry. He had no kicks up to halfway through the last quarter, and he kicked 3 goals in 3 minutes off 3 kicks. So, that was his stats for the day. 3 kicks, 3 goals. So, I mean, he can tear a game apart in a second. So, but he certainly, I mean, he did the next year, didn't he? So he's a special talent, that's for sure. Yeah, I wasn't there to make that call. I was a bit young to make that call back then, maybe.
I was going to say, Phil, it was fascinating footy back then. I mean, in the prelim, Terry Wallace tells the story for the Bulldogs when they lost to the Crows that it was never even considered in 1997, dropping players behind the ball. They were 5 goals up and the Crows were steamrolling them and just never happened. So it was probably just a thing then where, you're back in your system and there wasn't that heavy focus on, plan B, C, D or whatever it may be. But obviously at the end of that season, Jamie Shanahan leaves, the back line gets restructured yourself. Darryl Wakeland obviously assume a bit more responsibility. You were big enough, but not a monster. Was fullback always your calling? Because you played on some blokes, Richo, Fev, Matty Lloyd, who might have had some size on you that you handled very well.
It's funny, like I often talk to people, ask me a lot about forwards. If you look at the forwards today compared to the years when we played in that area, it's chalk and cheese. I mean, there was monsters back there, but there was also amazing small forwards. So I think it never really bothered me. I think I was, not to talk myself up, but I was blessed with a bit of speed and I had a long reach and not a bad vertical jump. So I sort of was able to nullify my maybe lack of size at times with that sort of part of my game. And I don't know, like I never really felt like I was what went out there and felt like I was undersized, but I knew, I guess I knew I was when I got in big wrestles with blokes like Lynch and that. But I suppose I had the ability to play small as well. I used to play on Matera and Nathan Brown and Brad Johnson and all those sort of guys. So I don't know. I guess you just assume a role and you just play it. And I guess not many people want to be a fullback, that's for sure. It's a lonely position back there sometimes. And I don't think I even visualised being a fullback when I was running around the midfield when I was playing juniors, that's for sure. But it's just the way it fell, I guess.
The usual simple question to any player is, you probably have a vivid memory of your first game and that sort of thing. But as a defender, I'm sure you have a pretty vivid memory of your first goal. Is that something that it almost feels like you kicked it yesterday still?
No, I don't have a really good vivid memory. I think my first goal was at the SCG against the Swans, and I can't remember if it was a set shot or on the run. And I remember I think it just cleared the goal line, and it wasn't anything special. I think we were down by about 50 points, so it wasn't really something you could celebrate. You know what I mean? I certainly wasn't pumping the air like some of these young fellas these days. So
yeah, you got the venue right, but it was actually against Kangaroos up there when they had a couple of home games there.
Oh, was it really? Oh, there you go. Yes. You know better than me. So, there you go. Kangaroos.
I won't say I looked it up, but
well, you got a better memory. Well, if you memorise it, you're doing well. That's for sure. But no, that look, we all like kicking a goal. I know it's very hard for a defender to kick a goal these days.
Well, fortunately, Jackson Clare did it on the weekend, which got us over the line.
Very much so.
Max, you get to the end of 97, first season. You've lost the grand final, but you must be pinching yourself. How easy is this? And then 98 rolls along.
Yeah, look, it's funny. Like, I don't know. All you want to do is play. When you're young, all you want to do is play, get drafted, play AFL, play your first game, play 10 games, establish yourself, get a contract, have a long career. And then I suppose you think about premierships as you get a couple of years on really deeply. I mean, they're always there that's why you play and that's what you want to do when you first start out. But I guess it did seem a little bit easier first year, but I didn't really think about it too deeply. And then, I mean, you're straight into pre-season again straight away. And I suppose when you look back at it now, who knows? We just we didn't win that one, and we had plenty of chances. But yeah, it wasn't. It's a long, long time ago. It feels like another life, like it never even happened. To be honest with you,
what it leads to though is a lot of unrest at the club, and everyone talks about Barks as being the coach in waiting until obviously he gets cancer and tragically passes away, which kind of, to me, felt at the time and still does a fork in the road for the football club, because this guy was a great of a modern day great of our club, and everyone knew that he was destined to be our coach at some point. Stan, for whatever reason, loses the players or the support of the administration, exits. Tim Watson comes in. You've had some great coaches in your time. and some really interesting choices too. You able to talk us through your coaches and the ones that you fondly remember for good or bad?
Yeah. So I obviously started off with Stam for 2 years. Stam was an old school coach. Like it was hard, tough footy back then. But I love Stan's passion. I love the way he gelled with the players. He got his message through strongly, but like it's hard. I mean, when things don't go right, and I don't know what happens in the hierarchy sometimes, but you hear certain things, but I'm not sure exactly why Stan and the club parted ways. I never. We did do some weird things that year, which everybody sort of talks about, but look, the club moved on, and then I think they got their stars in their eyes with Timmy. I think they found out Timmy was interested, and look, Timmy was my child hero. So when Timmy was appointed as coach, it was, I was really sad to see Stan go because I had a great relationship with Stan, and I still do. He's a wonderful person. Him and his family. And then Timmy came along, and look, once again, I got on great with Timmy. I loved Tim. I was starstruck by him forever. I suppose for in Tim's defence, maybe the team was probably on a downward spiral after 1998. I mean, as silly as it sounds, considering we played the 97 grand final, but I think the team was getting older. We didn't have we had a few injuries, and then we lost a lot of players. We lost Smith, Blappin, all these sort of guys, all the young, fresh guys who were coming through. And I just don't think Timmy was prepared 100% for maybe the expectations of what everyone thought he was going to get straight away. And when it didn't happen straight away, I think the world closed in on him a little bit. And then obviously, yeah, he gave it up, and then Blighty came in a whirlwind. Don't really have a lot to say about Blighty because he was only there for a blink of an eye. One of the weirdest pre-seasons I've ever done in my life under Blighty. Bloody hard pre-season too, just non-stop grinding. And then he was gone. The team was pretty bad at that stage. We really fallen off a cliff. And then Tomo came in, and he was just built the club up. He gave us a lot of ownership. Thought he was fantastic, Tomo, just the way he empowered the players. He was, he's revolutionary in the way he structured a few things. A lot of people question what he did with the rotating captaincy, but I thought it, matured our group pretty quickly. And then obviously I thought we were pretty unlucky, if you want to call it unlucky, not to win one with Tomo in 04 or 05. I think we had our chances. We had, a prelim against Sydney here, and we lost that. And we had the where else did we have? We had a prelim. Oh, we should have
Adelaide.
Yeah, Adelaide. Fraser kicks his 100th goal. Crowd stormed the field. A couple of players didn't play that well, including me that night, and we just didn't get the job done. Should have got it done. And then obviously I think we played Melbourne, lost Melbourne in the finals. The team we still had a really good team, but I mean, I think it's been well publicised. There was a lot more going on off the scenes with Tomo and Rod Butters. I think was more the point. I don't think it was ever about coaches or losing players or players losing coaches. I thought it was more of a hierarchy thing, that thing. I don't know how you guys saw it from the outer or what you heard, but it seemed that way. Devastating when Tomo left because once again, I mean, I loved all my coaches. I can't ever say a bad word about any of my coaches. And then Rossi came along and just really innovative with his game plan, really disciplined and strong, and just didn't take any crap. Players totally different to Tomo in many ways. A lot more not as empowering as what Tomo was for the playing group, but just really strict, got the players on the right path. And then Rossi's ability to obviously implement the whole forward press and full ground press, etc., was, fantastic. And, unfortunately, once again, so close, didn't get the job done for that playing group in 09 and 010. And obviously then I was out of there by then. But, so I had a vast array of coaches. I don't profess to have a favourite at all. Enjoyed each one of them. Would have loved to have won a flag with all of them if we could have, but it didn't happen. So it's pretty much my take on the coaches.
Fair summary, I think, also with the politics behind the scenes and the timing of it all. Just a couple before we let you go. Obviously, a lot of defining moments in a career. 2000 was a horror year for the club, and obviously fans were bleeding. And I reckon fans, they'd already warmed to you, but when they saw that moment against the Bulldogs, obviously when we're hurting as supporters, and then they see you, a player at the club, feeling that, I actually think that was iconic in terms of almost Saints fans feeling, they care and he cares, and it hurts them and it hurts us all, and we're on the sort of journey together. Did you anticipate that image would get as much traction as it did? I mean, you would have had no idea you were being filmed at the time, but
I didn't. I thought it was massively blown out of proportion as well. To be honest with you, part of me has a lot of regrets about it, and part of me hates it, because if you actually really boil it down, look, there's a lot. Look, I have a distressed look on my face, but I just squirted a full water bottle on my face. You look at my chin. Nobody cries with that much water coming off their chin. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I've always been a little bit frustrated by that moment, and I hate it. Part of me hates it because people bring it up so much, and I feel like it's an iconic moment that describes my football career rather than me just as a footballer. Does that make sense? Like it's used that way a lot, and it actually pisses me off. But I just roll with it, and I do it. But at the other stage, I do really appreciate the way people have warmed to it, and at the same token, there's there's a level of, there's all different thoughts about that moment, to be honest with you. Part of it haunts me, and part of it is fine. I'm fine with it. So, it's real. I don't talk about it often, but it's just pops up every now and again. And I just go, oh God, you know what I mean? So, it can be frustrating at times.
Yeah. So the club's going through, and hopefully is coming out the other end of the tunnel with a rebuild at the moment. And you went through probably one of the most famed rebuilds the club's had, where going halfway through a season, second season of Tim Watson, through the Blight era to start of Tomo, where we've picked up 14 wins in, I think it was 76 matches, to turning 2003 really shining, and then 2004 things turning it around and being up there and very competitive again. What kind of thing, I guess, is a key element to a rebuild that can turn around like that? What's something that you saw would happen and would probably be able to, I guess, suggest to a team now to say this is where you got to stick to? This is the most important key moments of rebuilding a side like that.
Good recruiting. That's pretty simple, I reckon. Look at it: Rewalt, Kaczynski, Ball, Montagna, Del Santo, Maguire, Garrick, Hamill, Xavier Clark. I mean, there was a big influx of quality talent that hit that list. And like all these young guys, we all need time to mature, find our feet underneath us. You spoke before about me having a year in, being an older recruit. Well, it's a classic example. Coming in ready, you got to remember these recruiting. You can miss big time on players all the time. Recruiting is so important, and then obviously you got to have a really good coach that's able to manage all the egos, all the expectations, all the different anomalies with all the players. So the coach and the coaching staff, and there's so many things that go into it. But I still think a coach is only as good as the cattle he's got on the field, and he's got to manage it. And we just had an abundance of quality talent that came through, bit like Geelong and a bit like Hawthorn did. Unfortunately, we just didn't get it done. We just didn't get it done. We had the team. It was our time, but we just did not get it done. So as simple as that. We had the team. You look at it. We had, look at our forward. We were stacked everywhere. Mids were stacked. We had younger players complementing the Harveys and the Thompsons, and we had good ruck. Just didn't get it done. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% spot on. Max, we appreciated the chance to speak to you. Obviously, universally admired amongst the St Kilda faithful, always a favourite son, and almost the very definition of that phrase, and an incredibly admirable career, one of the best defenders all through your time with the club. And we're delighted that you were able to share that journey with us, and thanks for your time.
I thought you would have asked me the one question that everybody asks me. Everybody asks me. Have you got it there?
The Barry Hall question?
No.
Oh, the Zach Dawson one.
No, how did I feel not playing the 09 Grand Final? Everybody asked me that. I thought you would have asked that for sure.
To be truthful, we were running out of time on the clock, but we didn't want to ask that. But we thought that might have been even more painful than some of the other ones.
No, it's not. It's actually not a painful question at all. People ask me, "Have you got a minute?" And I'll tell you if you want.
I think we've probably got literally a minute. Yeah.
No, in all honesty, the simple take is, of course, I was shattered. I was disappointed, devastated. But people say, "Oh, do you dislike Ross Sprott?" I go, "Not at all. Not at all. I got all the respect in the world for Ross." You got to remember, I always tell people, Ross is paid to be in a position where he gets to make decisions, rightly or wrongly, like a CEO, like anyone of a company, and he lives and dies by his decisions.